Hello, good evening. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Build Alton Towers. Now, if you watched the last episode, I built the towers themselves, and I built it in the first map that I worked on for this Alton Towers project. Now, obviously, when you saw that, I was at the build limit after I built it. So, this is the start of map 2. Now, the way I'm going to try and link it over is I've placed the towers down themselves. I've done all the terrain work to get the little ditch down here. I need to tidy it up a little bit just here, but it's not the end of the world if not. So yeah, I'm going to try and tidy it up a little bit there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to be working on everything that comes up behind this section. Now, from here, this path kind of goes straight on. And you can go off left to the Dark Forest, or you can go off right to Cloud Cuckoo Land. And there's like a big open area. There's a cable car station there. So yeah, there's a few bits to take a look at. But the first thing we're going to be doing is on this right hand side here. As you get up towards the top here, there is an indoor ride. This indoor ride is called Hex, the Legend of the Towers. And for me, Hex is one of the best flat rides I've ever been on. In terms of the story, in terms of the theming of it, in terms of just the whole experience of the ride, it's so well done. It's brilliant that it sits within the towers themselves because you get that nice little bit of history with it. And yeah, it's just an all-round great experience. So yeah, that's going to be this episode is working on Hex. So you'll see a few updates as I'm going along. One thing for those of you who know what Hex involves, it is a Vekoma madhouse, which is a bit of like an optical illusion sort of ride, in the sense of the illusion is that you're going upside down, but you're actually not. And obviously there isn't a ride like that in this game. So I'm going to have to build a bespoke ride in this one. There's not many rides in Alton Towers that I'm going to have to build fake versions of. I did a kiddies drop tower in the first map in CBeebies Land, and this will be the second one I'm going to have to do a fake ride for. However, there's the whole queue line experience, etc., to go through. So yeah, that's what I'll be doing in this episode. And the last thing to point out before I carry on is the way I've done the entrance here. So as you can see by these not so subtle mounds, I've built the path down here and just kind of terrained over it so that when the guests come out, it's as if they're walking up from X sector like we had before, and they're walking up and coming past the towers themselves here. So that's the sort of way I'm going to try and kind of merge the two maps together. When it comes to doing a park tour, I will edit it in such a way that it feels like it's all one park, but obviously it isn't. But yeah, I'll see you in a moment when I've made a start on building Hex, Legend of the Towers. Okay, so I've paused it here. I've paused construction here, should I say? This is going to be a quite a big build. There's a lot of theming to Hex to be done. So yeah, there is a fair bit. So I'm not going to just do a before and after because I kind of want to show you how I've got to certain places. Obviously, this is all the towers we built before. Down here, so if you picture at the end of the last map, at the end of the last episode, where the towers is at the top of the hill, essentially this corner here, a lot of different paths meet. So you've got the path across from where X sector is. You've got the path that joins up. This leads down to where the midway game is, just before X sector. This path leads down towards Mutiny Bay in the park, which will be after I've finished this map. I'll be heading down that area, I believe. There is a shop here that just sells food and drink, and then you have this path down here. It leads into the gardens down at the park, so you can go and walk through all the trees and the environment down there, which is a really nice walk. And then this path leads down towards the back of this area of the Dark Forest, which will continue later on in the series. Over here we have the queue times on the board, and just some advertising boards and some trees and rocks, etc. And then, as you go down here, you get towards the tower ruins themselves. So you can go through this archway, and this sign, the towers, entrance to the towers, ruins, and her ladyship's gardens. So these are the signs that are just here. So this is actually the exit to Hex. The exit does take you through the towers ruins, so there's not many people who go into this section. It's normally coming out, but you can go in there and go and sit down and just kind of admire the area, because it is really nice. It's filled out with all the gardens, with different topiary and stuff. So that's that. Obviously, I will be putting all that in towards the end. I've just not done that yet. And then as you get down here, you lead into like a big open plaza. Now, straight ahead, ignore that sign there. I will show you what that is shortly. There's a couple of phone boxes there I saw on Google Maps, so obviously put a couple of phone boxes in. So this open plaza basically over that section goes down towards the Dark Forest, and over here goes down towards what used to be Cloud Cuckoo Land and is now known as the World of David Walliams. That's how I'll be sort of expanding off of this area. The plaza might not be as big as this. There is a restaurant in the middle, etc. But I've just kind of put it in this big for now, just to give me a bit of kind of an idea as to a layout. Now, first thing, once I turn around here again, I've said it on numerous videos in this series, but a massive shout out to Boz Midget Slayer for another wonderful sign. How good is that? How good is that sign for Hex? And I mean, if you Google the entrance to Hex, you will see two banners, and this is what you see. I mean, this is honestly pitch perfect. I couldn't have asked for anything more, and I've no idea again how he has made this look so good. I mean, there's 377 pieces on it. I'm not quite sure how he's made. I mean, what these are just small rectangles, small ovals there. Honestly, the detail that he goes into here is absolutely sublime. There's a few pieces sticking out the back there if you want to see what's behind there. But I mean, that is honestly fantastic. I cannot thank him enough for that. I did request I did kind of see with him if he would be able to do that. I sent him the photo of the sign, and he said leave it with me. 2 days later, and he put it on the workshop for me to download. So thank you again, Boz, for that. So on the outside of here, on the outside of this part of the castle, there's a lot of vines, etc. Now, if you look at different photos, they're all sort of, some of them are orange and red, and then some are green, etc. So I've just kind of covered the wall in sort of autumn colours. So that's what I've gone for there. The entrance, now this entrance to Hex isn't used that often, because normally you can just kind of go through and walk straight in. But yeah, this entrance is here. It is all laid out like this. And that's only if there is an excessive queue. Hex hasn't been open for a little while this year, I don't believe. So hopefully, in 2022 that it will be open more, because Hex is definitely one of the best dark rides in the UK. One of the best I've ever been on, if not the best. And then there's just a little bit of planting around there. Now, the actual entrance to Hex, this is what it looks like. So this door is just kind of like ajar. Now, I was trying to work out what to use for this door, and in the end, I've used these Bavarian window shutters, because it's like a giant metal door, as you would expect on a castle, with the portcullis just above. That's what I've used for that. Now, in here, I'm obviously still working. The queue line to Hex goes sort of, it weaves diagonally like this all the way down, and then left and right there's like different artifacts and the screens telling you about the history of the towers, because the whole ride, essentially, if you've not been on it before, basically tells you like an urban legend of the towers, hence the name. Hence the name Hex, Legend of the Towers. The story, I won't explain all of the story, but essentially there's a legend of the Earl of Shrewsbury in the 15th century was on his way home, and he was stopped by an old beggar, and they asked him for some money, and he said no, and then she cast a curse on him, and she said for every branch of the old oak tree that fell, a member of his family would die. And that night there was a storm, and a branch fell, and a member of the Earl's family suddenly and mysteriously died. Yes, that's the sort of backstory, and then it starts to tell you about how the Earl then like chained up the tree, and then the branch was like locked away in a secure vault, and then that's where you end up basically, and that's where the ride is. But yeah, as you come down here. Another sign by Boz that he did these two together. I didn't even ask him for this one; he just did this off his own back. But again, another nice little decoration for the inside of the building for sure. And obviously, this ride I will be kind of viewing at night when it's done, because it will look a lot better when it's done at night. I've not done much of the lighting yet, it will definitely be a nighttime ride. I've done little bits, but I need to sequence it all together so that it all kind of comes on in a normal manner, and not just at random points like that. But yeah, the ride. I'm trying to think how many guests you can have on. I believe it's about 90. I believe every ride is 90 people. So essentially, you get down here, and there's normally a member of staff and a turnstile, and then they have 90 people here gathering. And then there'll be like these doors will open automatically, and then once they open, you then go through to the next scene. Now this I've done a little bit of work on. I need to do a little bit more in here, I think. But essentially, you stand in here, and the lights go dim, and then you watch the story on the screen. You watch the video. Again, this is where I'd love to be a PC player, because I could just import the video and it'd be so good. But I can't, so I've had to just put some of the writing from the story on. And then at the end of that, the light comes on to show you where the door is, so you can go through the door into the next scene. And this is how the kind of the story sort of unfolds, and you're told it. So you go through here, and then you're in a sort of this room ends up being like an octagonal shape. So I will be adjusting this part, and there's more sort of backstory to be told in here. And then after that, you go into the actual ride itself. Now, the ride isn't actually in the towers. The ride is in a purpose-built building, because the towers are a listed building. That you can't. Alton Towers can't knock down. They can't adjust the towers. But they've used it in such a way, in such of like a considerate and and thoughtful way that it doesn't actually mess with the building. So there is a pathway here into a sort of like it looks like a warehouse building if you look on Google Maps, and that's where the Madhouse rider is itself. Then you go on the ride, and then you end up coming out down the exit onto this path, and then you go back out the way that we came in earlier. So that's where I'm at for now. Obviously, I need to finish off the entrance in here. I need to put some of the screens and some sort of like decoration and lighting around the side here. But overall, I'm quite happy with how that is. I've left the fence on. I don't normally leave the fence on the queue lines here, but I've left the fence on because the barriers that are actually inside Hex they're just sort of like metal railings basically. And as I went on the scenery and looked down at the fencing, the only metal railings that really could have possibly worked are the sort of iron ones. So that they could have worked, but I didn't like how like sharp and pointy they were. They seemed to be more of an outdoor style. So I have used these outdoors, which you'll see down here. I have used the iron ones here because I think they work outdoors. But once you get up the steps here, once you go up and inside, there's not many better railings than the ones for the actual path itself to go. So that's why I've left them on, and I think that works just fine until you get down to here. And obviously, I have had to use the metal railings just to kind of cut off this section. So that is currently where I'm at, and I'm going to continue with that. And just before I do, I'm just going to show you, for those of you who have not been on Hex before, just a small section of the story or of the video that you see on the ride, just so you can kind of get a feel as the sort of theme that the ride goes to.
It was on a cold autumn night in 1821 when the thunder of hooves signalled the return of the wealthy 15th Earl of Shrewsbury back to his home, Alton Towers. As the journey neared its end, a mysterious figure suddenly appeared in the road. The Earl impatiently demanded of the driver why the carriage had stopped. With palm outstretched, an old woman pleaded with the Earl for the charity of a coin. The Earl cruelly dismissed her and instructed his driver to head back to the Towers. Scorned, the old woman screamed a curse. For every branch of the old oak tree that fell, a member of the Earl's family would die.
Okay, so I think it's time to have a look round the completed Hex, The Legend of the Towers ride. So, we'll have a look down in the gardens afterwards because that's the ride exit. Now, you did see this bit before. This is the entrance to Hex. As you know, it kind of goes through the entrance of the Towers. In fact, this is the old armory of the Towers. It was used as a gift shop before Hex was built. But yeah, this is the old armory of the Towers that was converted. It is a Grade 2 listed building, so they can't ever change the exterior of the building, and they must keep it within a certain tone inside. So Alton Towers have done a really good job of managing that with this attraction. So as you go in, now just before I go in, I'm going to flick to nighttime because this ride is all indoors, and on Planet Coaster, and if you go inside when it's daytime, it's still far too bright. So yeah, nighttime is definitely the best way to go into this ride. So we will head in. Now, as you go down the queue line, there is multiple TV screens, which you can just see here, that tell you, and they're showing like documentary footage of when sort of researchers and investigators were kind of going into the ruins and going into the vault of the Towers. So you do get them and kind of like building up that story as you go through the queue line. Now, what else you do get here is there's a few statues, etc. Now, unfortunately, the only statues in this game really are mermaids and pirates, and I don't really want to put them in because I don't think that would kind of kill the vibe. So I've just kind of stuck with the wooden scaffolding, the wooden and metal scaffolding that you see at the side here. So you still get that sort of feeling that you do on Hex. Yeah, that's what I've gone for there. And then obviously we've got the wooden beams going across the top just there. Now, as you get down here, you then go through a turnstile. Now, once you're through this turnstile, there is 78 people. It isn't 90, it's 78 that this ride can hold. And 78 people will then gather in this little area here, just here. And believe it or not, Hex is the only madhouse in the world that can hold that many. This is the largest madhouse. The rest of the Vekoma madhouses, I believe, are 60 is the capacity. But this is a Madhouse X, as I've discovered whilst I researched the ride. So what you do is you essentially stand here and you listen to a voice kind of giving you a bit of an introduction to the ride and the backstory, and then it mentions the Earl of Shrewsbury, and there is a portrait of him on this wall. Obviously, I can't put the portrait on myself, so again, I've just gone for that spooky tree. I feel as though the spooky tree and the branch kind of theme with Hex kind of works really well, so that's why I've gone for that. And then obviously we've just got the screens up there. And once this section is done, you then go through these wooden doors, and you get to the next scene. Now, in here, this is where obviously we have already seen this. So this is where the main story gets told about the curse that the old beggar puts onto the Earl of Shrewsbury, so this is where that is. Obviously, I've just got the writing up from partway through the story there, and then obviously this is the sort of setting that you get in here, and you go through then, once these doors open, into this room, which is like an octagonal room. There is a window outside. There's lots of effects going off in here. There is a figure that's kind of covered over at the top of here that is supposedly the old beggar. The best I could do is a mummy. I can't quite put an animatronic and cover them up. So the best I could do up there is a mummy. And but yeah, again, this is this sort of room. This has a lot more effects as opposed to TV screens. As in time spent watching the TV screen. There is still screens in here to watch. But there's a few more effects going off, like the windows blowing, like the flashing of lights, and a few sparks blowing out, some lightning, etc. And then if we go through here, this is where we lead down to the actual ride itself. Now I'm quite happy with how this has turned out. So you come down here, and then there's two doors, and you basically you go in one side or the other, and or you'll be directed to. And you go in, and this is Hex. So what you have in here is you have two rows on either side. So you basically go in and you shuffle all the way down to the end, and then these lap bars close down. And how a madhouse works, for those of you who've never been in a Vekoma madhouse, it's basically an illusion. And the best way I could describe it is it's like a sideways pirate ship, in the sense of you rock about 30 to 40 degrees. So you still you rock enough to feel like you're moving somewhere, but at the same time, the room itself is spinning the opposite way. So it feels like you're going all the way over. And there is parts of the ride where you feel like you're completely upside down, but you're only held in by a lap bar. If you put bags underneath your seat, they won't fall out anywhere. It is very, very well done, and unless you look up how it works, I mean, you can probably hazard a guess how it works, but unless you look up and do a bit of research into it, it is a very, very good illusion, and it's what makes this, for me, the story of the ride and the illusion of it, I think, makes it one of the best. It's definitely one of the best flat rides and best themed sort of dark rides in the UK, definitely. Maybe even ones that I've been on all over the world, to be fair. But yeah, so that is essentially it. And then down the middle here, you have got the you do have the branch, the fallen branch from the oak tree that you find when you eventually go upside down. You see it. Now, I wasn't going to put it on the ceiling because it kind of starts underneath you. So I've had to kind of make do here, and you've just got the red eyes from it there. If I go back to daytime, just so you can see this in here, you see what I mean? It doesn't look as good in daytime, I don't think. You can see what you're doing, don't get me wrong, but I think the lighting effect looks better. Maybe in the evening. But yeah, so that's what we're going for. That's what I've gone for there. And then down at the end here, you've got the obviously the Earl was trying to combat the curse with science, and there's a lot of this is supposedly a machine that he's trying to break the curse, etc. But yeah, so that is Hex, and as I say, I'm really happy with how that's turned out. I think that does do the job. Unfortunately, no guests are ever going to come in here, so I've just spent all this time just for people to look around it, really. And also, because these are logs and trees, they move, and I can't stop them moving. Really annoying, but unless you look at them, you don't really notice it. But yeah, they're constantly moving. So then after that, we'll just flip back to nighttime. After that, we come out here, and then you have a corridor that leads you all the way down and out. And at this point, I'll go back to daytime because we're going back outside. And you go into like a glass. It's like a small glass corridor. And then you go out into the gardens, and then the garden kind of comes down here. You can either go and sit down. I think there is a shop on the right, on the left side, or you can go into the towers themselves for a quick tour. I'm not going to be building that in here. I'm just kind of leaving this path going down here, and then you come back out to the exit of the towers gardens. So yeah, that is Hex. I'm very happy with that. For those who want a bird's eye view of it. The queue line and the rooms that have the sort of interactive rooms at the start are all built within inside the tower's ruins themselves. As I say, they're built inside the armory, and other parts of that. The actual ride itself isn't in the castle or the towers. This is built in a small industrial shed. I mean, I call it industrial shed because I work in construction, and that's what we call these types of buildings. But it's just like a big industrial unit, and then it joins on, but you never feel as though you're leaving the ruins. So, and that's the effect I've gone for. So I've made sure there's sort of 2 layers of walls. So when you go in here, it feels like you're inside there. But if you have a look at this wall here, you see there's 2 layers there. And that's how I've kind of given that effect off. One thing I didn't show you, if you go into no entry, there's just a small control room where the staff are operating the ride from in here. Again, nothing. I mean, look, there's a bit of wall sticking out there that I'll get rid of. But yeah, nothing too serious in here. Just I just want to acknowledge that the staff are going to be operating the ride from somewhere. But yeah, so that is Hex. As I say, it is built inside there, and the planning permission was basically granted on the basis that if they ever did remove the ride once its life cycle was up, then they would remove all traces of the ride, and the towers would not be affected. So that's why they built it in that little side unit, so that once the life cycle of the ride is up, they can remove that building, and the towers are still standing just as they always have been. So that is Hex, the Legend of the Towers. As I say, I'm really happy with that. It's a shame the guests won't be using it, but I've done everything I can other than build it for the guests. Yes, I could have put a normal path down here and put some viewpoints in to get them in. I do get that. However, the normal path isn't quite as thin as the queue line path, and I didn't want anything thicker than this inside for the queue line, which is why I've kind of opted for this method instead. So that's why I've done that. But if you have enjoyed that, then please do subscribe to the channel and give the video a thumbs up. And I'll be honest, at this point, I'm not quite sure where I'm going to next, whether I'm going to go into Cloud Cuckoo Land or into the Dark Forest. The next episode may just be sort of gearing up an area ready for a big attraction, but I'm not sure yet. So make sure to stick around next week for another episode of Let's Build Alton Towers. And until then, stay safe, and I shall see you next Thursday.